where do I find the opportunity and how do I write to win a bid, but nobody talked about maintaining the award. That's where the Chatter Project was born. But then I wanted to take it a little bit further because nobody talks about that secret sauce, that information that is required and that is necessary to develop a true contracting strategy, to develop that true contracting scalability that focuses around compliance, that focuses around efficacy. Oh, big word. That really just focuses around those things that people aren't talking about. That's where the Chatter Project comes from. That is why, voila, I am here. So, I started off talking about the FY 2022 budget, and it's kind of stalled right now. There is this massive reconciliation project on the way where they have to, the Senate says we need to cut it back. The Congress kind of passed it as is. Moderates are saying it's too heavy. Well, moderates are saying we need to spend the money. Conservatives are saying it's too heavy. And we want to keep in mind this is not a political platform, but rather a platform so that government contractors will know how to build strategy. And the reason I even bring up this whole conversation is because I want you to keep this conversation in mind when it comes to spending and how the government is going to prioritize spending. We have a gap stop funding in place where they passed a continuing resolution which funded the government through December, which kept the government open. What's going on now is conversations which will not only allow the government to pay its bills come October 18th, it will fund the government for the remainder of the FY 2022 year. Um, with that said, Happy New Year's. As we know, Friday started the government fiscal year. Now, the biggest priority that the government is really harping on is modernization of IT. Everything else has really gotten pushed back. One of the things that got pushed passed in the funding that was pushed through last week is the IT modernization. The Afghanistani, I don't care what, however you feel about it, the Afghanistani resettlement. Now, that package is a hodgepodge. You have housing and redevelopment, you have initiative to help these people get jobs, you have a lot of things. So if you are an organization that provides any type of work related to helping people from other countries coming into this country source work, then that bill funded work for you. There was a great increase in workforce development. I know I've spoken on this before, but several new initiatives hit the ground Friday. And I was on a call on Thursday, and I was on one Friday but stepped off of it. Excuse me, I kind of got distracted there. Workforce development is a big thing in the government because there's this huge initiative to increase the workforce. That includes education. With the mandates rolling out, and so many people opting to retire or go a different route with the mandate, there's a huge gap in the healthcare. Well, not that there wasn't a gap anyway, but it's just making it worse in healthcare, transportation, and logistics. Workforce development programs are really going to be honing in on that. So if you provide those types of services, there are contracts out there now that's going to be focusing on that. If you are an agency that do that are seeking those kinds of services, what the states and cities are doing is they're partnering and saying, if you hire some of these students in our workforce development program, we will offset some of the cost for hiring them. So it's a win-win for small businesses. So whereas you would have to, if you would take on the full burden, it would cost you $20 an hour. I'm throwing out a hypothetical. The state would pay 10 and you pay 10. These programs are out there. They're going by different names, but start with the labor department in your state. I cannot research all 50 states plus the 2 U.S. territories. That is beyond my ken, but I can give you places to start. Start with your Department of Health and Human Services. That's usually where your local welfare, WIC, EBT services are housed. That's typically where you will find those services at. Small businesses aren't taking advantage of these services. And it's not just for nurses, it's for all types of services. But in the healthcare industry specifically, with these new mandates coming in, and a lot of people are choosing to retire versus, being mandated into doing it. And what I'm seeing is there are people retiring who even got the injection, uh, whatever you want to make of that. I just think they're using that as a way to go out with full retirement. Um, so yeah, there's plenty of opportunities for you to use these dollars, and they've been earmarked for the next 10 years. Now, granted, after this administration leaves the office, this is not guaranteed. However, if you build a strong strategy, 4 years of the government offsetting costs with a good strategy will allow you to be able to take on those costs and be able to fund that position in perpetuity. So you shouldn't need a 10-year sponsorship for a position. The initial 2, 3, 4 years should be enough for you to be able to take on that position full time and run with it at that point. The point is of these government programs is a way for you to grow your small business. And this is just another tool for you to use contracting to help grow your small business that a lot of small businesses are not taking advantage of. They either don't know or they just don't take advantage of them. Another program that's currently out in the great beyond. Now, there's getting ready to be a great uptick in spending on the civilian side in government. Um, State Department, Homeland Security have huge budgets. I mean, ridiculously huge budgets. Now, small businesses will not be able to compete for capacity purposes. I hate to say it, but they won't. Most small businesses. However, these projects are so large, the subcontracting opportunities are there. Start the conversations now. 10%, 5% some of these initiatives will move the needle dramatically for some of these companies. And these contracts that are coming out are 10-year contracts. And because of the way government appropriations are done, once these contracts are signed and the funds are allocated, it's 10 years guaranteed funding. And as long as you show that you are capable of performing the work, that's 10 years. Now, you have to be capable of performing, but 10 years on some of these projects is huge. And I saw one, and it isn't out on the street yet, but it's $181 billion because they're combining multiple efforts under one contract. 1% of that, I quite frankly, I'm getting ready to hold a bunch of conversations to get in on that. But 1% of $181 billion over 10 years, I'm so, and this is what I'm talking about, having a true contracting strategy. And what we're seeing is that the government is starting to bundle some initiatives for streamlining purposes. And so the old school, this contract is all IT, this contract is all this contract is all that. There's is not going to be that marrying anymore. Some contracts are going to be hybrid. So you're really going to have to, if you're looking on a federal level, the state level is still pretty much like staying pretty much with these single type contracts. Federal level is doing this hybrid model. So you're really going to have to do a whole lot of investigating on how these contracts are coming out, what the components are, and do a lot more networking to get in on the subcontract bids. Now, yeah, wow, these contracts are super huge. So instead of counting yourself out, count yourself in on how can I subcontract and partner and with these primes. GSA is replacing. There's one contract GSA had out that just got bid protest so much until they're pulling it back and they're going to re-release it. And it's going to be re-released all small business. Well, it's going to be re-released with 320 small business slots. That's the way it was explained. And it's going to be a mega monster. It's going to be a mega monster. I'm going to dive into it a little more tomorrow. It's going to be IT intensive. However, it's going to be one of those contracts where if you win on this part, you can't win this part. Because if you win on the admin side precludes you from winning on the other side because it's a conflict of interest. But it's going to replace two of their heavily contested prior award contracts. Oasis being one of them. Oasis small business was so contested, it was ridiculous. I remember when Oasis was bid, when it was originally awarded. Oasis was originally awarded with a small business component, but it went to like General Dynamics and Lockheed. It got bid protest to the point they withdrew it, broke it up, did a large business and a small business component. That got bid protested until they withdrew the small business component, broke it down, recompeted it, and it still got bid protested. So the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee a month ago, he did an interview where they're looking to change the way bid protests are done. There was a change to bid protests about 10 years ago, where if you lose a bid protest, you bear the cost. They're getting ready to change it again because what they're seeing, and quite frankly, it was a tool companies used as a bully. If they lost and they just was sour grapes, they would bid protest to force the winning company to give them a piece of the pie. Well, now it's gotten ridiculous the way companies are bid protesting. So the Ways and Means Committee is looking at totally revamping the bid protest process. So I say this next fiscal year, we're going to be on the lookout for some rule changes. I think it's going to be sad for the small businesses because that one change with the bearing the cost of it really made it harder for small businesses to, you know, protest the bid even if they were right. Because if you lose, that's a lot of money to absorb. Quite frankly, it's just a lot of money to absorb. This new change is going to inadvertently affect small businesses. I really don't see how it isn't. So we're going to have to I'm going to keep an eye out on it and report back to you guys on the changes that are coming down the pike with it. But yeah, there's going to be a really big change. And then I'm going to wrap up today's session with the cybersecurity protocol. It started out with just a DoD initiative that was being adopted by GSA and Homeland Security. From now, my understanding is it's going to be swept across the government. So by the end of FY 2022, every contractor with a government contract, including of Medicare and Medicaid, is going to have a cybersecurity requirement. That is going to, which includes reporting of significant incidents of cyber attacks. You're going to have to get a CMMI certification on your system. It's because of the increase of malware and cyber hacking of the government, and they're finding that the attacks are now coming through the contractors and subcontractor systems. I sat in on an initial webinar that was hosted in partnership with SBA. I'm going to go through the process, one, so I can help my clients, and two, so I can just report back to you guys on what the process is going to look like. I will be listing the resources for it because the initial leg of it is going to be sort of like a self-reporting, a self-assessment, and then you're going to get into the whole having your system evaluated by the company. They're going to make recommendations. You have 6 months to cure any deficiencies that they identify before they officially accept or reject your system. If your system is rejected, I do know DoD is taking the stance. If you fail to receive that CMMI certification, you cannot receive a DoD contract, and that includes if you're a subcontractor. DoD is, from this point forward, flowing down that requirement through their RFPs, Section J and L. They're utilizing the Christian doctrine and making it a flow down requirement to the subcontractors. So whether it's stated explicitly or not in your contract agreement, it is a flow down per Christian doctrine. And I don't know of any other agency that has taken that stance as of yet. However, I do see it coming with, if not by the end of this fiscal year, by the start of the next fiscal year. So contractors, I suggest you get on your P's and Q's. You start system evaluation. Your off-the-shelf Norton and McAfee is not going to be enough. And with that, I'm going to close out today's session. I'm going to invite you to join me tomorrow morning at 8:15 a.m. for my next installment of the LT&A Chatter Project. If you have a topic that you want me to cover, please send me an email at the LTandA company at gmail.com. My vanity email will be set up by the end of today, but my email address is also in the description. You can send me topics, you can shoot me questions, and I will deep dive into a topic that I've covered on to any session a little more. If you want to have a conversation, I invite you to get on my calendar for a strategy session. Government contracting is 3 parts strategy, 5 parts compliance. And if you're trying and if your desire is to grow contracting, you must have a compliant company. There's no way around it. And with that, have a great day. Take some time, go outside, enjoy the sun, and I will see you tomorrow morning at 8:15 a.m. Have a good one.